Welcome to Immigration Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Italian officials question Meloni's deal with Albania to house migrants. Victorian town raises $11,000 to appeal against visa rejection of much-loved community volunteer. Biden administration urges U.S. court to uphold asylum restrictions. Hearing to set trial date for man charged in officer's death continued. Cuban delegate seeks refuge in Chile after Pan American Games. Italian officials question Meloni's deal with Albania to house migrants. New York Times. The Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has announced that Italy will outsource the processing and containment of migrants to Albania. The details of the deal remain unclear, but with the increasing number of migrants arriving in Italy from Tunisia and Libya, the need for a solution is urgent. The British government has also proposed flying asylum seekers to Rwanda, and Greece receives money from Brussels to keep migrants away. The deal that Meloni announced will essentially turn Albania, a traditional source of migrants heading to Italy, into a Greek island for Italy so that migrants can be held on Albanian territory. The Italian government has been criticized for its treatment of migrants and the conditions of the camps where they are detained. The new deal is also concerning to critics as the process of offshoring migrants undermines their fundamental right to apply for asylum. Albania is receiving no money for this deal, and the Prime Minister, Edi Rama, says they agreed to it out of the goodness of their hearts. Victorian town raises $11,000 to appeal against visa rejection of much-loved community volunteer. ABC. A foreign national, Ariane Kiki Joseph, is fighting to stay in Australia so she can care for her elderly aunt who is blind and bedridden. Joseph came to Australia from Mauritius in 2019 on a bridging visa and applied for a carer's visa in September 2019, which was rejected. The community in the small town of Leongatha has rallied around Joseph, hosting a charity concert to raise funds for her visa appeal. If her appeal is unsuccessful, Joseph's aunt will have to sell her house and move to an aged care home. Biden administration urges U.S. court to uphold asylum restrictions. Yahoo! A lawyer for the Biden administration has argued in court that a judge was wrong to block a rule imposing restrictions on asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico border. The rule, which was adopted earlier this year, presumes most migrants are not eligible for asylum if they pass through other nations without seeking protection there first, or if they cross the border illegally instead of arriving at a designated port of entry. While the judge ruled the rule violated federal immigration law, the administration has argued that it includes various exceptions to rebut the presumption that migrants are ineligible for asylum. Hearing to set trial date for man charged in officer's death continued. Yahoo! The trial of Martin Rivas Rodriguez, charged with first-degree manslaughter and causing a fatality accident without a valid driver's license in the death of a McAllister police officer in March, has been postponed for a second time because an interpreter was not available. Rodriguez waived his right to a preliminary hearing in October. He is set to next appear in court on December 4. Cuban delegate seeks refuge in Chile after Pan American Games. Reuters. A Cuban delegate who arrived in Chile for the Pan American Games has requested refuge from Chilean immigration authorities. The government has said that 21 members of the delegation remain in Chile. Local media reports that 7 Cuban athletes, 6 of whom are women, have left their residences in the Games village and cut off communications with their delegation authorities. The government initially stated that the delegates had visas allowing them to stay for 90 days, but later clarified that they arrived on special Cuban passports, which are set to expire soon. Deputy Interior Minister Manuel Monsalve confirmed that none of the 7 athletes mentioned in local media have requested refuge, but that a request has been made by another person of Cuban nationality. Bibi Stockholm migrant barge to cost more per head than hotels. The Independent. Housing asylum seekers on the Bibi Stockholm barge will cost more than putting them up in hotels, according to new estimates, despite a government pledge that it would be cheaper. Scholz hails Germany's historic clampdown on illegal immigration. Financial Times. The German government has reached a cross-party agreement to tackle illegal immigration and explore the possibility of establishing asylum processing centers outside of the European Union (EU). The agreement, which was reached after 17 hours of discussions, significantly reduces social benefits for refugees, increases financial support for state governments, and aims to speed up deportations. The move follows Italy's announcement that it will open migrant centers in Albania. Germany is the latest country to consider establishing extraterritorial asylum centers, following the UK and Denmark. Canadians face long lineups for Indian visas as political rift creates backlog. The Globe and Mail. People in Canada with deep ties to India have been waiting for hours, and sometimes days, to receive visas from the Indian visa processing sites in the country. India suspended visa services to Canada in September after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused the country of involvement in the killing of Canadian Sikh separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The month-long suspension has created a backlog of appointments, leaving some people to wait in line for a walk-in spot. Tory members want me to save their party, but I'm afraid it's too late. Telegraph. The UK Conservative Party is facing a significant split between its parliamentary party and its activists and members, according to Nigel Farage, the former leader of the Brexit Party. In an op-ed for The Telegraph, Farage argued that the Tories have lost sight of their purpose and have left grassroots activists wandering around aimlessly and desperate to believe in somebody or something. Farage contended that the party had only secured such a large majority in the 2019 general election because it had adopted the language of the Brexit Party. However, he claimed that activists were now disillusioned, as the government had failed to deliver on its Brexit promises and immigration levels remained high. Farage suggested that the next general election could see a seismic shift in British politics and that his Reform Party was gaining ground among former Tory voters. A recent poll by Conservative Home found that 7 in 10 paid-up Tory members would welcome Farage back into the party, although Farage doubted that the parliamentary party felt the same way. Germany wants to cut benefits for refugees. Deutsche Welle. The German federal government and the premiers of the 16 states have agreed on measures to amend the country's refugee policy. The changes include extending the threshold for higher benefits for asylum seekers from 18 months to 36 months, reducing the appeal of the German welfare state. Finance Minister Christian Lindner suggested that this could lead to savings of €1 billion. The government is also considering switching to payment cards instead of cash payments for refugees, similar to systems used in France. This would prevent cash withdrawals from the cards. The government also plans to accelerate asylum procedures, with the aim of limiting the duration to 6 months, including appeals in court. However, there are legal concerns and doubts about the feasibility of carrying out asylum procedures outside of Europe. The government also plans to introduce a lump sum payment of €7,500 per refugee per year to cover costs. The measures come as cities and municipalities have been struggling with accommodation and resources for refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your favorite Six Doctor here, bringing you the latest news from around the world. We've got quite a diverse range of stories today, from Italian officials outsourcing migrant processing to Albania, to a foreign national fighting to stay in Australia to care for her elderly aunt. But don't worry, I've got all the details and my own unique analysis to share with you. Let's start with Italy's deal with Albania. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has announced that migrants arriving in Italy will now be held on Albanian territory. This move has raised concerns about the treatment of migrants and the violation of their right to apply for asylum. But here's the twist: Albania is receiving no money for this deal, and the Prime Minister says they agreed to it out of the goodness of their hearts. Now that's what I call generosity. Next up, we have the heartwarming story of a Victorian town in Australia rallying around a foreign national, Ariane Joseph, who is fighting to stay in the country to care for her blind and bedridden aunt. The community has raised $11,000 to support her visa appeal. It's great to see a community coming together to support someone in need. Moving on to the US, the Biden administration is urging the court to uphold asylum restrictions at the US-Mexico border. The administration argues that most migrants should be presumed ineligible for asylum if they pass through other nations without seeking protection there first. Now, I'm no legal expert, but it seems like the administration is trying to make it harder for migrants to seek asylum. I guess they really want to secure that border. In other news, the trial of Martin Rivas Rodriguez, charged with causing a fatal accident in the death of a police officer, has been postponed because an interpreter was not available. Now, I understand the importance of having interpreters in court, but let's hope they find one soon so justice can be served. We also have an interesting story from Chile, where a Cuban delegate who arrived for the Pan American Games has requested refuge. It seems that some Cuban athletes have left their residences and cut off communication with their delegation authorities. I wonder what's going on there. Perhaps they just wanted some time off from the games? In the UK, it seems like the Conservative Party is facing a split. Nigel Farage, the former leader of the Brexit Party, claims that grassroots activists are disillusioned with the party and are turning to his Reform Party. It looks like the Tories have lost their way and their members are looking for someone or something to believe in. Will Farage be their savior? Only time will tell. Lastly, Germany is planning to cut benefits for refugees as part of their efforts to tackle illegal immigration. The government aims to reduce social benefits, speed up deportations, and explore the possibility of establishing asylum processing centers outside of the EU. Looks like Germany is following in Italy's footsteps. I guess they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Well, folks, that's all the news for today. I hope you enjoyed my witty take on these stories. Now it's time for you to join the discussion. What are your thoughts on Italy outsourcing migrant processing to Albania? Do you think the UK Conservative Party is in trouble? Let me know in the comments. And remember, stay curious and keep exploring the 6 degrees of our world. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.